how long from I'm going to start doing networking, like Netacad, to I got employed at a rocket company?
Yeah, I started in 2018 learning for my CCNA before I knew what a CCNA was. And then I got hired working on a rocket in 2021. So
yeah, it's like 3 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What an amazing journey.
I'm so lucky. On terrestrial, networks, we don't have to deal with these challenges, or we don't have to deal with them to such a degree, that we do in space. So for example, when a rocket is launching, it's exploding, right? It's literally exploding in a controlled way, but still exploding. And it's enormous, right? So we're gonna have a ton of vibration, more than you would see on Earth, even in like industrial spaces and things like that.
Hey everyone, David Bombal coming to you from Cisco Live with a very special guest. Lexi, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a fan.
Well, I appreciate it. It's something I've been wanting to set up for a long time.
Yeah.
You have a really interesting story, but we got to start with rockets because that's where you're at the moment, right?
Yes, I'm at rockets at the moment.
So tell us, where do you work? I know so just for everyone watching, there's some NDA stuff. So I'd love to extract more information from Lexi, but we can't. But where are you working, and are you kind of working on there's a type of Ethernet that you mentioned?
Well, I can't talk about specific protocols or technologies at all, but what I could say is I work at Blue Origin. I'm an avionics integration engineer, so I'm on the networking team.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very impressive sounding title, right? Avionics is a portmanteau of like aviation and electronics.
Okay.
So it basically means I integrate the electronics for a flying vehicle. In this case, it's a rocket. So I'm specifically there to be like the expert on the network devices that are on the rocket and basically help integrate everything so that everybody on the rocket can talk to everybody else.
That's amazing. So we were talking offline about there's a specific, the Ethernet that you use on rockets generally is not the Ethernet that we have on Earth, right?
Well, it's not about Ethernet or like a specific protocol like that, but really what the deal is for, there's a lot of different space-specific protocols that a lot of people have not heard about. There's layer 1, layer 2 protocols out there just that people have developed for space. So when we're talking about the challenges of networking in outer space or a network that's designed to go into space, it's really about general challenges that we don't see much or at least as intensely as we like on Earth as we would in space. So for example, when you're designing a network on a rocket, you need to make sure your devices can handle a lot of vibration.
Yeah, the whole rocket going like that.
Yeah, a rocket going up into space, it literally is exploding, right?
Yeah, exactly,
to get up there in a controlled way, but yeah, it's exploding. So you have to have devices that are hardened and able to withstand a certain amount of vibration. And we do have industrial networks today and devices that are made to withstand a certain level of vibration, but it's still not quite the level that you would see on a rocket. So that's something we have to deal with. Also, the extremes of temperature, hot and cold. Yep. Again, industrial networking on Earth does touch on these things, but it's still way more extreme in outer space than it is on Earth. We have to deal with ionizing radiation, which can cause bit flips. Yeah, and that's something that we are definitely protected from on Earth because of the magnetic shield around the Earth that we have to deal with in space we wouldn't be protected from. So your devices need to be able to recover from things like that. So if you have a lot of bit flips in your data or in memory, basically to fix that, at least short term, we reboot the thing, right? We reboot the device. So you need to have enough redundancy in your network that you can have something reboot to fix something like that and not have a problem, not lose packets, things like that. So we have a lot of challenges in space that are similar to what we have on Earth, but more intensely, I guess, a problem.
So I mean, let's go through the layers, right? If we can. I mean, just in general terms, like if I wanted to get into this, is it like Ethernet, like standard Ethernet cable, or is it like special types of Ethernet, and then like layer 1, layer 2?
It depends. It depends on different rockets. You can do different things. It's up to the company. So some places don't use Ethernet at all. Some could. Again, I can't talk about different like the specific protocols I work on, but it's up to the company, right? We have there's a kind of Ethernet called time-triggered Ethernet.
Yeah, that's what I was wanting to learn about.
Yeah, we were talking about that. So time-triggered Ethernet, again, not something that I necessarily work on, but it's out there as a very helpful protocol in industrial spaces and in some cases on spacecraft because it's a sort of layer 2 QoS type protocol almost. Okay. You're able to have something called a more deterministic network in that way. you can run regular Ethernet with it, but also at the same time, if you have time critical applications, like again, in industrial settings, this is very important, you can actually make sure that specific types of data get to where they need to under a certain, latency SLA or something like that. So
okay.
it's a really interesting protocol that not a lot of people know about.
What's the name again?
Time-triggered Ethernet.
Time-triggered Ethernet.
It's a special flavor of Ethernet.
But you can read about that online, right? It's like a standard
absolutely. Yeah, TTE is the company that developed it. I haven't been able to find any certification surrounding it or anything, but I think it's going to be more and more relevant as we get into outer space as a species and humanity, and I'm really excited to see all the protocols that come out of casual space tourism and trying to do scientific stuff out in space. There's a lot that we still have to develop in order to get us out there. And so we have a lot of challenges when we're talking about designing a network for space or to go up into space for any amount of time that on terrestrial, networks, we don't have to deal with these challenges, or we don't have to deal with them to such a degree, that we do in space. So for example, when a rocket is launching, it's exploding, right? It's literally exploding in a controlled way, but still exploding. And it's enormous, right? So we're gonna have a ton of vibration, more than you would see on Earth, even in industrial spaces and things like that. So your connectors, your cabling, if you have it, your chassis for your network devices have to be hardened enough that the links can actually physically stay connected while that thing is vibrating all the time. And so it has to be, there's an actual vibration rating, right, for all this stuff. You have to really pick your hardware purposely for that. Also, radiation is another challenge that we don't really have to deal with on Earth. You hear these jokes about solar flares, and bit flips, but those are technically possible, but very, very rare on Earth. We're mostly, shielded from any kind of crazy radiation that you'd see in space down here on Earth. But when you've got, a network that's traveling up into space and going to spend any amount of time there, you have what's called ionizing radiation.
Okay.
Ionizing radiation, now I'm not an astrophysicist, okay, but as I understand, ionizing radiation is when you've got these atoms, these particles traveling through space so fast that they actually get ripped apart at an atomic level. So the nucleus of the atom and the electrons get pulled apart from each other and they speed, in various directions. And these particles are basically the ionizing radiation itself. And so when they interact with physical matter, they actually change it at an atomic level. So these particles are traveling, from their point of origin so quickly that they're pulled apart and they can affect physical matter that they come into contact with. So they'll actually change it at an atomic level. So we get things like bit flips as a result. So you have electronics in space and these particles are traveling through. They can actually cause, as data is traveling over wires or whatever, they can actually cause these bits to actually change. And so your devices are going to interpret that as increasing, data being garbled until it's just reporting a ton of errors and it can't understand what data is being sent across. So yeah, you're not actually rebooting it from Earth yourself necessarily. These devices have to be fairly autonomous. Once that rocket launches, you
can't just quickly drive to the data center.
Yeah, because you don't want anybody on Earth, whether it's you or someone else, right,
like
to be able to
or whatever,
exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want somebody to be able to get into your rocket and make it do things. So it's very autonomous once it's going up there. So your devices have to be able to sense when they are seeing too many errors past a certain threshold and then reboot themselves, right? So you bake that into the hardware or whatever you're using, the technologies. So your network needs to be resilient enough. You need to have redundancy or something baked in there so that when you reboot PHYs, when you reboot chassis, entire devices, it can recover and you're not going to lose any packets, ideally, right? So similar to the issues that we have to plan for on Earth, but in a much more intense way, and you have to deal with these radiation things.
What about heat and cold? Because it's very hot, isn't it, when it goes up, and then it's very cold in space, right?
Exploding on the ground once again. So it's not just vibration; it's also a ton of heat from the fuel, and so that's an extreme of heat. And then you get up into space, and it's very, very, very cold, colder than temperatures that we would see on Earth. So you have to have devices that again are physically hardened to be able to withstand that.
Where did you learn this? I mean, you're learning this on the job and from people, but like, is there any resources online where people have got this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so NASA releases a ton of stuff publicly about the technologies they use, the hardware they use, the protocols they use. They have a ton of stuff, and I'm blanking on there's like the Deep Space Network, DSN. If you Google anything like Deep Space Network, NASA networking, they have a ton of stuff available publicly where you can just read about all of this. It's fascinating.
You got to tell us a bit of your story. So you obviously got like 10 CCIEs.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do that in order to be successful, right? That's the only way. No, I've got a CCNA. I got it with your help.
Wow,
honestly.
well, thanks.
I mean, thank you. But yeah, I have a CCNA. I had a whole other career prior to this. I won't go into all the details, but whole other career. I have a degree in English literature, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so not super applicable to networking, but I just decided that I wanted to redo my career. I went back to school. I found Cisco Netacad. That just made me fall in love with networking. I didn't really know what I was looking at when I saw an IP address, but once that was explained to me in my first or second Netacad class, it was like, it blew my mind. So I got my CCNA. I worked in a NOC for a few years, and then I got onto Twitter around that time, and somebody at my current company found me that way on Twitter. I used to sort of live stream myself learning things.
Yeah, you were doing networking. Like CCNP training on YouTube,
yeah,
right?
I was studying for the CCNP. Have not gotten it yet.
Come on.
But I'll get it one day. I was studying for the CCNP, live streaming myself, just going like, I don't understand this, but here's what I'm reading about it, just talking through the learning process. This person found me and was like, hey, I think, we've got a role open at Blue, and I think you'd be good at it.
So when you applied, they have the job listing with you have to have all of these things.
It was a very daunting job rec, I'm not gonna lie. I saw it at first and I was like, I don't think I'm qualified for this. I don't think I could do this. But because this person encouraged me to apply anyway, I went through the first interview with them, and it was great. It was a great experience. Everyone was very nice, but then I looked at that job rec again, and when they came to me and said, we want to do a second interview with you, I was like, I sent them this long sort of emotional email like, I don't think I'm qualified for this. Like, everything on this job rec is like, I'm not an expert in Python, I can't do all of this, and you deserve a candidate that can actually do all of this. And
you're actually trying to turn it down.
Yeah,
in a way. Wow.
I hyped myself down.
Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the job rec was so daunting, and so I said all of this, and the manager and the architect both came back to me, wonderful people, and they both said, in summary, like, you're a very humble person for saying this. Like, we still think you would be a great candidate. You had a great interview. We like you a lot. You'd fit in, and we can tell that you will learn what you need to learn to be good at this job.
And that's happened, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And now that person's my manager, and I work with the architects of the Rocket Network, and it's my dream job. It's amazing.
You got the job. You didn't know everything, but you were honest about that, and they knew they had to spend time training you. For me, when I look at trying to hire people, because I do that these days, it's like I'm not just techie anymore. It's the attitude, it's the motivation. That's more important many times than technical skills. I'm
hearing that a lot more often now, and I really appreciate that, because going into tech was really daunting for me, coming from a very non-techie background. I thought I had to be able to pass all these incredibly technical interviews and impress everybody and have a bunch of certs. But, there's a time and a place. Certs are good. It depends on what your situation is. But if you can show that you have a good attitude about learning, and that you're willing to learn what you need to be good at the job, and you're passionate about it, you're almost all the way there with just that, right?
I've heard many people have said this, and I believe this. You can teach technical skills if someone has the aptitude to learn them, but you can't teach attitude, you can't teach motivation, you can't teach character.
Absolutely.
And those, if someone has that, then that's the person you want on your team, right? And that's what they saw in you.
I like to think so. That's basically what they told me. I am so grateful to be working at, such a cool place, and a place that really values those particular traits in a person. And I'm not an expert at anything still, but I've grown into the role. I absolutely love it. I learn something new every day. It's a weird, cool, very fun job.
But I think the inspiration for everyone watching is qualification-wise, according to the metrics that a lot of people would use, it's your CCNA, but you're sending rockets into space.
Yeah.
Sorry, you wanted to say something?
No. That's it. And I don't want to. What's the word?
Downplay the cert.
I don't want to downplay the cert. The CCNA opened so many doors for me. I'd recommend it to everyone all the time, anytime today, but you don't need to be the most qualified, the most certed up person in the room, the person who can say the most buzzwords or talk about the most complicated things to be the right person for the job.
How did your English literature stuff help you? Because, I mean, you didn't tell us too much about the background, but I'm pretty sure that helped you like write reports and like communicate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like to be down a little bit on the humanities degrees, but I don't believe in that. No. Yeah, it gave me a good foundation in communication skills, writing, documentation, and we all know is really, really important in tech, and it helped me. Actually kind of am very passionate about documentation. So I people value that because not a lot of people like docs. I was going to say, you must be like,
everyone wants you on their team.
Yeah, exactly. So it gave me a lot of these foundational skills. Critical thinking is so important. You learn that with English literature and humanities degrees, and it helped me learn a lot. And ultimately, I'm glad I have that other background that's not tech, because I think I feel more grateful and excited about tech and more passionate about it, having seen a whole different career that's not this. So
how long from I'm going to start doing networking, like Netacad, to I got employed at a rocket company?
I got very lucky. It was 6 months.
What?
Oh, wait, sorry. At a rocket company. That's not correct.
No, that's fine.
6 months from I'm going to start learning networking to my first job, which was in a NOC at a service provider. Yeah, I started in 2018 learning for my CCNA before I knew what a CCNA was. And then I got hired working on a rocket in 2021. So
yeah, it's like 3 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What an amazing journey.
I'm so lucky. Yeah.
Again, coming to luck, you put in the work and you put yourself out there, right? Because you're on Twitter.
That's true. Now, I don't want to, there's an interesting conversation around, do you need to be on social media to get a good job and be successful?
No, I'm kidding.
You don't have to, but if you're inclined to do it, you can leverage it to your advantage, right? I didn't get a lot of followers. I wasn't doing it for the followers, honestly. I started live streaming myself, reading out of Cisco Press textbooks, right? Hilarious. And making fun of like typos in them and stuff. But that's what got people's attention, right? I think that if you can show yourself learning and enjoying the learning, wanting to learn, having that passion, I think however you can showcase yourself doing that, that is a huge advantage for you in the job market.
And I'll say this, I mean, I think technical people sometimes make the mistake of thinking they have to be just excellent at technical stuff, but you need to be good at marketing yourself.
Yeah, that's true.
And social media is a way to market yourself.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I didn't know that's what I was doing when I started it. I just needed a way to study that kept me focused. It's so hard for me to just sit down and read out of a book unless I'm being held to like, okay, I'm on a live stream, so I really need to, keep going. That was my unique way of doing it, and it turned out to resonate with a lot of people. But yeah, if you can market yourself and, find something unique that you can share with the world, it really makes you stand out to employers.
I have a daughter, 12 years old. This is going to be very inspirational for her. But talk to girls that want to get into tech or ladies who are in tech. What's your advice?
Oh man, that's such a question. My answer changes every time somebody asks me this. Yep. I would say go for it. Yep. Just go for it. If you're even a little bit interested, just go for it. There's so much in tech I don't think people realize. So if you're not immediately interested in what's right in front of you, like building a PC, right? When I was little, it was like, I don't care about building PC, right? If you're not immediately interested in that, look into coding or look into security or, there's so much under tech. I'd recommend talking to somebody that who is in some kind of tech position, find out more about what you can learn about, look at free YouTube videos, explore it before you write it off, right? I'd say if you're a woman who's already interested in getting into tech, but you don't know where to start, look at YouTube videos from creators who are already doing stuff like that. Look at, come to something like Cisco Live, right? And ultimately, there's a lot of talk about women in tech having kind of a tough time, right? And I don't want to gloss over that. It can vary company to company, but it can be still really wonderful. You can still find a very supportive space, especially today. I'd say if you're looking for your first job in tech, vet the company. Don't downplay your skills.
Like you did.
Yeah, don't do what I did. I was lucky I had people that recognize that, but don't downplay your skills. Try to vet the companies that you're talking to as much as they're vetting you for the job. You can tell, you can get a sense for whether or not they're a safe place for you in the interview. So and connect with other women who are in tech. That's also very important.
And people can reach out to you on Twitter, right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Track-A-Pacer on Twitter and every platform, actually. Track-A-Pacer, I'm on pretty much everything. So I would crawl over broken glass, not to be dramatic, to help another woman get into networking or tech in general. So please reach out to me. There's also plenty of other women in tech who would love to help other women get into it. So we're here for you.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And
for
what an
having me.
inspirational story, 3 years from English literature, right?
Yeah.
To doing networking for stuff that goes into space. That is an amazing story.
Thank you so
Lexie,
much.
thanks.